Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy.
1967, the summer of love. Pop music is no longer just a commodity for young people to consume at the weekend. It's going to change the world. In the future, there'll be no more war, there'll be no more bigotry, no more violence, no more hatred, no more oppression. We're just gonna love each other. Yeah? Sounds too good to be true. Hang on, stop this a minute, stop. Okay, let's fast forward into the future. Say 10 years, yeah? So we're going from 1967 to 1977. Look at these chaps, eh? No doubt they're going to sing us a lovely love song about love.
We're the Ramones, and you're a loudmouth, baby, you better shut it up. 1, 2, 3, 4!
The Ramones, quite possibly the greatest rock and roll band of all time. But hey, that's my personal opinion. But what had happened to rock music? In the 60s, it had all these high ideals. It was going to change the world. It was revolutionary. But there is another side to the 60s. And as anyone who lived through that era, who would now be probably in their 70s, probably about the same age as your grandparents, they all say one thing. And that is, if you remember the 60s, you weren't really there.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out. I mean, drop out of high school, drop out of college, drop out of graduate school, drop out of junior executive, drop out of senior executive, turn on, tune in, drop out.
Hey Tim, that's all well and good coming from a nice rich American boy like yourself. But how am I supposed to pay the rent? But I guess that's such a logical 21st century way of looking at things. But back in the 1960s, things were different. The backdrop was the war in Vietnam and the civil rights struggle in the United States. Young people were rising up against the previous generation who'd led us into 2 catastrophic world wars. There were student uprisings on the streets of Paris, Prague, and other major European cities. And people genuinely believed it was time for a radical break with the past. It was the era of revolution, the era of radicalism, the era of anything goes, and anything did go. Free love, psychedelic music, drugs, revolution, it was all there. Today, with the wisdom of hindsight, we can see a lot of it was very naive. In particular, the attitude people had to drugs. Today, we all know drugs kill you. Drugs are bad. Back then, nobody really knew. LSD, it had only been around for 5 or 10 years. And it most certainly spawned some of the most interesting music ever to be made in rock, including bands like Pink Floyd, The Doors, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, The Grateful Dead, etc., etc. All kind of coming together in one great big huge lovin' that was called Woodstock Festival. Woodstock was seen as the hippie dream coming true. It was really happening. This lasted maybe a year, and the dream would become a nightmare. There were two key events that contributed to this nightmare. One was a free concert given by the Rolling Stones at a speedway track in California called Altamont. They hired a violent motorcycle gang known as the Hells Angels to take charge of security. Not a good idea. The Hells Angels created havoc at Altamont and ended up killing an audience member. The other key event was orchestrated by a charismatic figure who'd taken Timothy Leary's call to turn on, tune in and drop out, quite literally, and moved to the desert with his followers known as the Family. He was Mr. Charles Manson. Manson and his followers, otherwise known as the Manson family, were responsible for some horrific murders, including the murder of Sharon Tate, who was the wife of legendary film director Roman Polanski. She was pregnant with their child-to-be at the time, but the Manson family showed no mercy and they stabbed her to death, scrawling obscenities on the wall with her blood, as well as some Beatles lyrics. So much for love and peace. The 1960s were over, and as a new decade dawned, the 70s, it felt like the dream was over.
to touch.